1. Some years ago, I got stuck in the city because my transport was late, and I missed the train I was supposed to get on to continue my journey. I got a cheap room at a cheap hotel in a not too shady part of town, and thought to myself that as long as I take my precautions and don't take any stupid chances, nothing ill should happen to me. I am a petite female, and back then I was about 20 years old, and not too brave either. When arriving at the hotel, I quickly noticed there were some bars on the other side of the street, and further down there was a 24-hour open store. But the street there wasn't very well lit, so I decided that I wasn't going to go over there. I came out to my room and fell asleep pretty quickly. After a few hours, I was awakened by shouting and laughing from the street. The bars were closing, and people were heading in all directions. I looked out the window and noticed a crowd on the street. I was so hungry, I decided I would run down and over to the store quickly to get some food and run back to the hotel room before the street emptied again. When I arrived at the entrance, I had to walk by two guys chatting lively in a language I didn't understand. They were loud and kept looking back into the store. I excused myself and made my way around them. Inside, I got what I was looking for and got in line. There was quite a line built up of drunk people looking for a snack. The girl before me had real trouble paying for her food. She dropped her wallet on the floor, and coins poured out. I quickly bent down to help her gather it, and I noticed how incredibly drunk she was, totally not present at all. The cashier started to get impatient and asked the girl, "Are you having this stuff or what? The total is..." She had trouble counting up her money, so I stepped up and asked if she needed any help. She showed me her hand, and I picked out the money and handed it to the cashier. She then walked away. I paid for my own food and turned around to walk out when I suddenly noticed that the other two guys outside had been joined by a third, and all of them were standing maybe 20 meters from the entrance with a big black van with the engine running. I could see the face of one of them in the dim light, and I swear my blood froze. Till this day, I have never seen such cold predator eyes in my life, and they were staring at the drunk girl who was standing and looking at the magazine cover just beside the sliding front doors. Every time she moved and the doors would open, I saw the men standing there. I had no idea what to do, but was sure as hell not going to let that girl outside alone. So I went over to her and asked her if she was alone, if her friends were out on the street or anything, but no, she didn't have anyone with her. I decided to grab her hand and told her that she had to come with me. She was so drunk at the time that she didn't object, even a little. Just squeezed my hand back, and I didn't wait any longer. We walked out in the street, and I almost fainted of anxiety when I saw the guys following us with their eyes when we walked down the street. I was so scared they were going to follow us or something. It was only maybe 100 meters to the hotel, but it was dark and most of the people who were on there earlier had scattered in all directions. Luckily, one of the bar doors opened and out came a small crowd of people. I didn't wait for anything. I screamed, "Hey, wait up, we're right here, we're coming," as loud as I could, and they stopped and just looked at us while I tried to run with the girl dragging beside me. One of the guys shouted something back, but I didn't catch what it was. Just continued to move forward as fast as we could. I thanked them for waiting and explained what was up. Then the guy shouted at us and told me that he saw a shadow of somebody running away along the brick walls of the buildings on the dark side of the street when he heard my yelling. They walked with us to the hotel, and I took the girl to my room. I was so shaken up that I didn't fall asleep before sometime in the morning. But my new friend fell asleep before she hit the bed. Next morning she wakes up and asked for something to drink. Suddenly she opens her eyes and looks at me like she has no clue what's been going on. I then quickly explained what happened the night before, and that I couldn't leave her alone as I suspected that the guys were up to no good at all. She was shocked to hear this, and didn't remember anything other than going out with her friends. Got some drinks, and then it went black. I walked her to the bus stop, and we had some coffee before she went home. And I caught the train I missed the night before. So, creepy guys waiting for a defenseless, out-of-her-mind drunk girl, let's not meet. 2. I just remembered this encounter back when I started 2nd grade. To better give you an idea of why this is weird, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. It was a big deal back in 2002 to 2003-04 in my school, so I got into it. It's a board game, but it's very complex. Each character you use has its own sheet and whatnot, so there were some precise rules to follow to get the most enjoyment out of the game. Now, as I mentioned, this happened when I started my 2nd grade. A boy transferred from one of the classes by the name of Bogdan. He was a huge but chubby, wide-eyed, almost intimidating, but also very dweeby looking boy. He is weird to describe. Apparently he was autistic, and some kids used to make fun of him, which was horrible. Now my class was one of the more disciplined ones at my school, and we kinda accepted Bogdan quickly, and we used to hang out with him a lot, even if he was acting weird a lot. As a kid, I never fully grasped the concept of autism, so I found him sometimes annoying. Now, I played a game by the name of Baldur's Gate 2, which was a Dungeons & Dragons video game. Everybody used to talk about it at my school. It came out in 2000, but since my country used to get games much later back then, we kinda were talking about it in 2002. Now, Bogdan came from a rich family. His father was a popular lawyer, while his mom was involved in politics, so his parents were never really home all that much. Once my English teacher paired me up with Bogdan for a project to make up a short fictional storyline. I was a big Dungeons & Dragons fan, and so was he, so we decided to create a high fantasy storyline, even though we ripped 90% of Baldur's Gate story with our own bizarre childlike imagination. Once I was invited to his house to finalize on the project and present it to our teacher. I went over to his house, and this is where the bizarre stuff happened. On the outside, the house was huge and beautiful with 2 modern cars. I go inside, and I see the house is kinda messy, and a lot of mirrors and vases are broken. Or it looks like they're in places that you normally would never see a vase. Like inside a bathroom or something. Which even as a kid, it caught me off guard. I saw the TV they had on the opposite side, facing the wall. It was pretty weird. I asked Bogdan what's going on, and he acts like nothing's wrong, and keeps repeating, like a loop, word by word. Then, as we are both writing the end of our project, he starts quoting some of the lines of the characters from the Baldur's Gate video game. The one he quotes the most is where your main character, depending on your gender, race, and voice, moves to a different location, and he says in a Cockney-like accent, "Alright, what's this then?" He insists on me putting that line in there for unknown reasons. I tell him it wouldn't make sense to put it in there, and he repeats that fucking line again. I told him that I will finish the project back at my home, because he annoyed the hell out of me, so I left, and he acted normally about my leaving like nothing's wrong. I present my project the next day with Bogdan, and he out of nowhere starts verbally abusing me about changing the storyline, even though I didn't change anything, and that what we wrote in it was approved by him. He starts calling me these vile names for a kid at that time I wasn't supposed to say. The teacher gets angry, and we get an F. Now I was a bookwormy type of kid, and this was the first time I got an F since I was mostly A's and B's during 1st grade. I get angry, and I push Bogdan violently on the floor, and he starts crying. The teacher flips out, and tells me I will stay in detention after the class. They call my mom and dad, and my mom comes and scolds me for pushing Bogdan. She understood why I did that, but I shouldn't have done it in the first place. The next day, his father calls at my house and apologizes on behalf of his son, and tells him that me and Bogdan should make up first thing in the morning. The next morning, his dad and my mom meet face to face for the first time, and we all say sorry to each other. But I noticed that Bogdan says sorry in a menacing way, almost like he planned to do something. I told my mom about it, and she told me that I was paranoid, and to let go. Couple of days pass, and me and Bogdan don't exchange a single word, until he tells me something cryptically from the Baldur's Gate game. Almost like a reference or something, he tells me, "Make way, villainy, hero coming through," which one of the characters by the name Minsk tells it in the game, and it's like an iconic line, I think. I thought he was just being Bogdan, till one day he wasn't at school. I come home from school, and I find one of my windows slightly broken, and the doorknob of my house's front door on the floor. Now, I was really bad financially with my family at that point, and we had this old-ass door that you don't need a lot to get through. And for the past couple of weeks, we found that the doorknob was kinda not working all that well. Also, I lived in a barrack-like house, and not a proper one, very old and cheap. I found a couple of my Dungeons & Dragons board games missing, and a couple of mirrors broken in my house, and for some reason, the mail was missing from my fridge. I instantly called my parents, and they both came quickly and called the police. The police came, asked my parents a couple of questions, and my sis, who came late that day. They told us that they will find out what they can ASAP, and will inform us. But I had a feeling it was Bogdan. The board games missing, and the mirrors, it was obvious. His father was contacted by the police, and they informed him that his son broke and entered into my house, barrack. His father and his mother were shocked to find out, and this was reported on the news, since both of his parents were more or less famous people in my country. After that, both of his parents returned everything their son stole, and after a couple of weeks, Bogdan never returned to class, and probably switched schools. Many years later, when I started high school, back in 2009, I found out that both of his parents divorced, and his father moved to another country. 3. I'm a male, 21 years old at the time this happened, was living in a modern city in Europe, Spain, but rather poor myself, unfortunately. I lived with my father during my teens, but he was violent and threw me out on the streets in the middle of a school year semester. That led me to drop out and work for a living. One thing led to another, and my life was pretty much worthless after a short time. No education, no job, and no money. 3 years later, I'm living on my mom's couch in a small city apartment, shady neighborhood with the baggage that comes with it. Life was rather miserable. I have to say my memory does fail on some parts due to the zombie-like state I was in. So I leave out anything I can't remember clearly, for your sake. What I won't forget is a girl I had a crush on right after I moved in at my mom's, that crossed my path again around 2 years later. The warmth and happiness I felt when she hugged me after several years was exactly what I needed at the time. Well, that's what I thought at least. Teresa was a petite blonde, blue eyes, and a smile that made anyone that met her infatuated. And now she wanted me. Why she wanted me didn't actually raise any questions in my head. I was clearly not thinking straight. I was at work one day when I received a text. "I cannot meet you anymore. He knows, and he is crazy. Please leave and never come back. He's going to kidnap you or hurt you badly," he said. It hit me straight in the face. I could feel my blood pump through my veins. I got nauseous and dizzy. Having anxiety does not make a bad situation better. I need to say this. I did know her ex was a madman from before. He was in jail the first time we dated, but she said it was over when we met. I wouldn't have done anything with her if I knew. He was in jail for violence because of jealousy, and now he was after me. All kinds of things ran through my head, and I realized she probably used me to make him jealous. She revealed he saw our texts, and that's how he learned. I was not aware that they were together still. How stupid I was for not seeing that is hard to think about now. The fear I felt every second of the day after this moment was crippling. In our following messages, I learned that he was looking for me. He and his brothers that were equally crazy. I know some might think it couldn't be that bad, but it was. I went straight home from work, right after getting the message. I told my boss I was sick, which actually was true due to my anxiety. I don't think I slept anything that night. I was numb and my mind was cloudy. Due to previous experiences, I was seeing a psychologist for possible PTSD at the time. Luckily, Spain has free healthcare. I went back to work the day after and got called into my boss's office. I thought he would fire me, but that was not the case. He said that someone came in looking for me after I left the day before, and he basically had to throw him out of the store because he wouldn't leave before he found me. I learned that it was his brother that lived close by that came for a visit. My boss tried to convince me he had several favors he could call in to take care of these guys that were after me, but I felt it would make things worse, so I quit right then and there. I started to isolate myself. He knew where I lived because acquaintances I met in the streets warned me. People are looking for me, and they have been seen around my neighborhood. Apparently they are driving around searching for me, thinking they eventually had to see me one day. What they would do to me if they found me is something that ran through my head all the time. I packed my stuff together, and a friend let me stay at his house. I didn't want to risk my mother to get involved in this, so it was the best thing to do at the time. I got more isolated and paranoid. I didn't leave my friend's home unless I had to. I already changed numbers, and only gave it to people I trusted. Later on, a common friend called me, somehow, got my number, and asked to meet up. Rather unusual since we didn't usually talk, and never hung out, just the two of us. He was friends with her, Teresa. I realized he actually didn't know that I knew what was going on. He tried to get me to meet him. He had some lame excuse, and I understood it was a setup. He tried to convince me, and when he finally gave up, started becoming hostile. I said I didn't feel well, and that's why I couldn't go out for a beer. He finally hung up. This is already months later, so this wasn't going to get better anytime soon. One night, after a long evening playing video games with my friend, I was woken up by someone calling me from an unknown number. "My name is Alphonse. You should be very careful when you walk outside. Remember my name." Then he hung up. Again, I started shaking. Who is this, and why is this guy threatening me? I could not think of anyone else that would want to harm me, but I did not recognize the name. I woke my friend up, and he said that he knows who it is, but no more than that. He said he didn't know, but I could tell he did. I couldn't sleep anymore. All the events had made me into a scared little kid, and I did not know what to do. After doing some more research on this Alphonse guy, I found that he was a guy you would pay if you wanted him to take care of something for you, like collecting money or making people disappear. I was thinking that my life is over. I had nowhere to turn, unless I was able to move. Since I didn't own anything or have any money, I had to find someone willing to help. I reached out to anyone I could think of that I knew lived far away, and hit the jackpot. A distant cousin could offer me a carpenter job at minimum wage on the other side of the country. I just went with it, seeing I had no other choice. I asked them to wire me some money for the plane trip, and to pay them back after I got my first salary. I was finally free, and could start living again. And that's how I'm still alive today. That I'm sure of. After moving, I experienced similar incidents, but that's for a whole nother story. I didn't learn my lesson the first time, but I guess that's how it is when you feel alone in the world. You take what you get, more or less. If anyone wonders, I'm a healthy and productive member of society now, living happily with a great girlfriend and nice job on the other side of the world. So dear Alphonse, or crazy ex-boyfriend, let's not ever meet. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 101. Thank you so much for all the good feedback you gave me on yesterday's 100th episode. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for episode 200, but that should be a while away, thankfully. I'll do on average 3 of these a week? Yeah, that's months away before I need to worry, but that's probably next year, actually, when I think about it. So, very big thanks to everyone for all your comments, for all your likes, for all your shares and retweets. It's just very, very helpful to me. I appreciate all that. Okay, let's see. Updates for the week. Okay. I think, I should have enough to do another subscriber stories video on Tuesday. Wednesday will again be 3 true scary stories. Thursday, I'm not certain of yet. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to make an effort to try and get that Tinder video finally finished. So hopefully that. If not, then it'll be something. I generally have something interesting, or at least I hope it turns out to be interesting. Then that brings us to Friday, and yep, Friday's already taken care of, actually. Friday will be paranormal stories again. And Saturday, not really sure. Let's all cross our fingers and hope I can get another TIFU done. I think I've got 1 to start with. Just 4 more to go. And I've got almost a week to get that, so that should be fine. And with that said, I'm going to go have a snack and get some rest. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.